All right, so this is what we got left on this side of the woodshed, and this side is right full too. This is why I like to try to stay 2 years ahead. That way, some seasons you use more than others, and you just grab from the other side. Hey guys, Dave from mt.topliving here. On this channel, most of the time we operate a tractor and do some firewood stuff. But today we're going to talk about my masonry heater, the Tulikivi stove. And I would like to make these type of videos because when I was purchasing this model or this brand in general, there were no videos, especially from people like me who own them and operate them. All of them were just like infomercial type things. So today I'm just gonna like go over a little bit of what I've learned about having it. This is my 4th winter with it. So let's head inside and we'll talk about it. All right, so I'm just gonna show you around a little bit to give you a better layout of how this house is laid out and how this Tulikivi heats the home. So as you turn to our right, this is the kitchen. This is a fairly small home in today's world. This total, including the upstairs loft, is 1,600, just over 1,600 square feet. Plus there's an entire basement yet to be finished. So we've got this big wall of glass. And then we've got the loft up here. And then back down to the Tulikivi. So you can see it's a fairly open space. We do have another room back here. So first of all, we had done quite a bit of research on masonry heaters, and there weren't a whole lot of people in the area that knew what they were to begin with, and there was even less people available to build these. Most people were several years out because of how rare it is to build these. I had one builder suggest we go with, I believe it's an American company called Greenstone. And after I looked into it a little bit, I stumbled across Tulikivi, and I decided that that was a better fit for our build. Angie and I went out to the local dealer, and I say local, I think he was about 3.5 to 4 hours away. And they had an entire showroom full of these. Really cool to see the different styles, the different sizes that you could get. So I suggest if you're looking for one of these, or you're thinking about having one built, you make the effort to get to one of these showrooms that has more than one or two, because it's really nice to see them in action, and these people are extremely knowledgeable. This particular person has been doing it for over 20 years, and now his son's doing it with him. So it's great to see that being carried on. In any case, when we were designing this house, we learned pretty quickly that we had to design our entire house around this. There are some folks that put this close to an outside wall, and we chose to put it basically in the middle of the house. And with that, if you wanted a completely open floor plan in like, let's say your basement, underneath this is also 4 separate walls holding this up. So there's this big chunk right in the middle of the basement. Now that doesn't bother us at all. It kind of cuts it up and allows us to have different rooms down there. But these are things you got to think about when you're building out a house. And to us, it was worth it to put this in the center of the house. One of the things that we chose was a double-sided glass on it, so we can load it from either direction. I do load it usually on the other side, but sitting across from me is our couches and our chairs. So we're able to see the fire from pretty much the entire downstairs, minus the spare room off to the side here, which is totally fine. And it's nice, gives great ambience at night. Sometimes you think we left lights on because the fire's throwing off such intense flame. So let's get down to the real thing here. What have I thought about this for the last 4 years? So it's a learning curve to begin with. I've had fireplaces and wood stoves and wood stove inserts and wood boilers in my past. So I'm totally familiar with burning wood. So the first year, I just about cooked us out of the house several times because I treated it more like a wood stove in that I kept, oh, the fire's about out, let's throw some more wood in. And that's, in our experience, if you're looking at a 20-degree day, Fahrenheit, that's way too much. All of this stone heats up and it keeps radiating that heat throughout the day and throughout the night. So what I've learned is that less is better. We usually have a fire in the morning and a fire at night. And I say that meaning very rarely do we add additional wood after the first fire. So unlike a wood stove, where in my past I would get up in the morning and try to have coals left over so you can toss on another piece of wood. If you want one of these, get used to making a lot of fires. I start a fire in the morning and I start a fire at night. That's just what I do. If you think you're going to have coals in here after 12 hours, you're not. So just get used to making a lot of fires. The fire starters are rather inexpensive. I know people make them, but the ones that I buy are $100 to a box, and by the time you do the math, it's 28 cents a piece. So to me, it's well worth letting someone else make them. They ship them to me. I'm good to go. So let me show you some other things about the stove. All right, so below the firebox, you have an ash pull-out lever. This just pulls out. And underneath that, there is a door. And on that door, there's a vent. And you can slide it back and forth. And that allows the airflow in. And it's designed such that no matter how far you shut it down, you cannot prevent air from going in there. It's always going to have some kind of air. Inside of here is an ash bin. Oh, look at that, it needs to be emptied too. And so you just pull those guys right on out. So what I learned rather quickly is that having the vent wide open on both sides, it has this now, and it has an ashtray clean out lever on both sides as well. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's getting enough draft. So what I've learned to do is I leave these open for the first 5 to 10 minutes until the fire really gets going. Then I just close them off. One of the things I also have learned is that if you go longer than 24 hours without having a fire, there's still some form of internal heat to this. So starting a fire during that period of time is relatively easy. But if you were to have a really stone cold fireplace and you chock this full of wood, sometimes, it's super rare, but sometimes there doesn't seem to be enough draft going up, and some of the smoke will tend to billow out a little bit. And I've only had that happen twice, but what I've done to correct it is I just crack the door a little bit, let a burst of air come in, and it almost immediately corrects it. And I don't know, there's probably some scientific reason behind all that. So it's only happens on the cold stove. So maybe that's something you might be aware of. So what other features about this do I sometimes not love? Well, let me take it on the other side and we'll talk about it. So one of the things we really loved about this is it had a pizza oven. And that's awesome, right? Well, we quickly learned that it takes a minimum of 3.5 hours for this oven to come up to the correct temperature to cook a pizza for less than 10 minutes. So you're spending half the day getting this to temperature. So is that worthwhile, your fuel? Well, it depends, right? Because this pizza oven doesn't just, the smoke doesn't just go straight up. It does the same thing as the rest of the stove. It circulates the smoke on the sides and it captures that heat. So you still are heating your home when you use this. And you can't use both at the same time. The top and bottom cannot have fires in them at the same time. Which we didn't know till just about time for installation. So a lot of times we'll have a fire in the bottom in the morning, and then about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I start making the fire up top to get the pizza oven up to temperature. Now with that said, probably 90% of the cooking I do up here in the oven is not pizza, and I don't have to make a fire in there to cook. The firebox down below will heat up the oven sufficiently enough to cook all sorts of meals. I've made bread, I've made chicken, I've made pulled pork, I've made spare ribs, and I do have a playlist on some of the things that I've done in the pizza oven. So go check that out if you're interested. So in any case, I'm a little disappointed in how long it takes to make a pizza. But with that said, it's super awesome to just say, let me throw this in 9 o'clock tonight and it's going to be ready tomorrow morning. Or, hey, let's cook a chicken in there. And a 350 degree oven is a 350 degree oven. Doesn't matter whether it's gas, electric, or wood. So it's great to have around. All right, so behind me is the extra bedroom that we have. And that is the only room in the upstairs first floor that gets a little bit chilly. And I think this happens with most wood-fired appliances. You got to move the heat somewhere, and then it's hard to get in there. And it's not, I don't believe the top of the Tulikivi gets warm enough to put one of those fans that kind of runs by itself to move the air. So we're still kind of like trying to play with different scenarios and how to get the heat in there a little bit better. But that's the only room that we have a problem getting heat to. But with that said, we do have a primary source of heat is usually the Tulikivi, but we do have hydronic baseboard that is powered by propane. So if we wanted to go away, we have a thermostat. Thermostat is actually on the wall right over here. Right here. And it's a little close to the Tulikivi. But with that said, if the house cools down to whatever I have it set at, I think I have it set at 66. If the house gets colder than that at night, the baseboard kicks on, which makes you not a slave to firewood, right? I try as hard as I can to heat with wood most of the time. But some days you're like, I don't want to do it. So that's kind of nice. All right, so let me show you the wood that I brought in. This rack is something I just threw together, but this amount of wood will typically last us 3 different fires. And then I just wheel it over to the front door and I load it up again. And you can see there's a variety of sizes in there. So there's a variety of sizes that I bring in. And I cut and split my own firewood. And that's one of the changes I made the first few years, is this firebox is quite long. You can put like 22-inch firewood in there. And the first couple of years, that's what I did, is I cut everything long like that. And what I learned is the glass tends to get more smoky. You got to clean it more often. Here we are, beginning of March, and I've cleaned the glass on this twice this year, whereas in years past, it's like every day, every other day. And then what I did to change that is I went back down to 16-inch firewood instead of the longer version. So you have more space on either end. It's not making such a mess on the glass. And that also helps when we're bringing it in. Angie's got smaller hands, and the larger firewood was just more cumbersome for her. So that was a change that I made to make this work better for us. So was it all worth it? Well, these are not inexpensive. These are pieces that are going to last my lifetime and hopefully several other folks' lifetime. There's not a whole lot we have to do to these other than the typical maintenance, cleaning things out, chimney cleaning once in a while. We've done it every year since we got the stove, and every time they're like, there's nothing in there. It's just less than a handful of black ash. And that's great, right? There's burned super clean. These are pieces that are going to last an extremely long time. And like I said, it's going to last my lifetime and hopefully several other folks. Would you be better off with a wood stove? I don't know. I've had those, right? Does it do the same thing? Yes and no. I've had the wood stove with the soapstone on top of it, similar to like Vermont casting, if you will. They're great. Not as great as these. This is totally different than one of those. So when you look at a wood stove and you're trying to compare it to this, you're looking at apples and oranges. They're just not the same at all. You have to dive into the mechanics of this to understand why they're so different. But I get back to the question, is it worth it? You're going to have to answer that question because they're not inexpensive. Is it going to be worthwhile for you? This home here that we built is going to be our last home. We're not moving again. So to us, it was worth it as part of our dream home. So in any case, guys, I hope you got some information out of this that's worthwhile to you. If you have any questions about anything, please drop me a comment and let me know. Again, this channel's a lot about tractors, but I'd be happy to make more videos like this if I can help answer some questions for you. If you want to come back and see the rest of the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, be a good human.